virtual Decatur Heights Baptist Church viewers, happy Sunday. I want to thank you for joining us for today's online Sunday service. It's a little different today. We will be having our first installment of the Real Talk Ladies Edition series. So we're really excited to present that to you. For those of you that would like to join us in person, we are open. Church is in session. We have 2 services. We are practicing social distancing in the pandemic of the coronavirus. So we have a service time beginning at 9:45 a.m. and 11 o'clock a.m. in person at the Decatur Heights Baptist Church location, 4301 Edmonston Road, Bladensburg, Maryland. But for those of you who are with us online, I hope you enjoy today's Real Talk Ladies Edition session. The link below in the description box is for our Tithely page if you'd like to tithe and give online to Decatur Heights Baptist Church. We thank you in advance for your support, and we wish you a very happy Sunday and God bless. Real Talk Ladies Edition. Let's go.
All right, ladies. So tell us about yourself. Just a brief testimony. Who are you and how did you get here on this video today? I guess I'll start. All right. Hi. I'm Nikki. I've been in this church for a long time. I started here when I think I was about 5, and I'm born and bred in the church. My kids go here. This church is a deep part of me. How did I get here? I was asked to be here, but I've been a Christian for quite some time, but I got rebaptized when I was 17. So I'm kind of a newish Christian, and I'm here to offer my perspective on the way that I've been brought up and how I see, I guess, issues in women's life.
Okay, so my name's Adrienne. I have been here since I was 4 years old. Started coming to this church with one of my neighbors, with my brother. This is my sister-in-law. We sort of grew up here together. I was baptized when I was 7 years old, so very early on. I've stayed in the church this entire time, but I've had some of my own personal issues, but I've always found my way back to the Lord. I have a daughter who currently goes to this church, and I just, love to come here and worship with my family.
My name is Maria. I am Pastor JJ's wife and the First Lady of Decatur Heights Baptist Church. I was baptized at 13 at Bethesda Baptist Church, which was actually a family church. My great uncle was the pastor there for about over 20 years. So I was baptized at 13. I strayed away from the church, and I didn't really grow up having to go to church every Sunday, so it wasn't a mandatory thing. It didn't really start becoming something that I did on a regular basis until I was around 12 or 13. And so after that, I went to college, I came back, I met my wonderful husband, and we have 2 children. I am here because he told me 2 days ago I had to be here, so we're here. No. I'm here just to give my perspective as someone who didn't really grow up in the church, and then how the Lord has changed my life over that time frame and where I am now.
So, hello everybody, my name is Melissa. I am a transplant, so I was at God's Army with Pastor JJ, and I'm now a part of Decatur Heights Baptist Church. Mind you, I've been to 2 or 3 other churches since migrating to the United States, for I am from Jamaica, mother of 2. What else can I tell you before we get into these questions? Mother of 2, and just raring to go to really show persons that women, apart from being holy, we do have our issues, and they can be related to on a daily level. So let's get into it, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that you've told us about yourself, tell us who you are in Christ. What does it mean to you to be a Christian woman?
So, I can start. I really struggled initially with the being a Christian woman thing. And part of it was also being a Christian wife, which I don't know if there's a separate question later about that. But it was this idea of, I think for me it was just a misunderstanding of the word, right? So when you don't really understand what you're reading and you're just reading and you're first starting your walk, sometimes it gets difficult to be able to relate that to everyday issues that you would face and that you encounter. Like the word submissive to me was always a very, it was like a nerve, right?
Yeah.
And it was about understanding what that meant and what the Lord meant when he said that. So for me, becoming a Christian woman is about, has been, or my journey has been understanding and really reading the word and understanding what the author's intentions are, and not jumping off of the deep end because I think something different, right? But learning, hey, these are my liberties in Christ, right? These are the things that I can do, and really using that as the fuel to spread the gospel to other people, that it's not so much about face value, but understanding what the word of God says and how you make it applicable to your situation. Right. So that's kind of how.
Well, that's funny because growing up in the church and coming here, it was like twice a week thing. I had to be here. There was no choice, sick or not. But I never really had, even today, I don't think I have a problem with the word submissive. And I know a lot of people do. To me, because I grew up with very mature marriages as my example, my parents included, it wasn't difficult to see the Christian ideal. My issue, especially since I got married young, was becoming myself, but still under that umbrella of a husband, of Christianity, of God, and not losing the person I was going to grow up to become, because I still wasn't grown at 19. I'm still learning things now at 28, and it's just becoming an adult and finding my image and my identity, but doing it in a safe, respectable, godly way, and also maintaining the appropriate testimony. Because I mean, my life is not like, oh, I went off the deep end and stuff. I went pretty Christian-y. I got saved, we got married, and just had some kids, and are still living in the church. So it wasn't necessarily hard to be submissive. It's not hard to follow directions, but it is hard to balance. No, I think I'm right, but I know I have to respect my husband. I know I have to respect such and such. And to not lose my voice in a respectable way to me, so that way I don't lose myself. As being a mom of 3, it is hard to stay in my own mommy identity or Nikki identity. But to also maintain that title of I am still a wife. And that's a great thing. And I'm proud of doing that. And I'm proud to have that as a big part of my identity. But yeah, I always think it's funny because women are like, oh, I can't be submissive, I can't follow. And my thing, I never had a problem with it. And I'm like, well, is that my fault? Am I too quiet? And so it's still that funny balance of finding that Christian identity within the title, a great title, being a wife.
So I'm not married. So for me, being a Christian woman, it's just sort of, number one, understanding what a Christian is, and sort of just finding myself as a follower of Christ and just sort of identifying with that first. And then once I understood what that meant and how that looks, and seeing people do that, I had to understand, like, as a woman, what is my role within the church? I'm not going to be a preacher, but I am a teacher. I am involved in the women's ministry we have on Saturdays. I'm involved in the children's ministry and the choir and stuff like that. So that's how I identify myself as a Christian woman, just how I follow Christ and the different ministries that I can be involved in.
So submissive for me is a great nerve even to this day. I'm sorry.
I'm like, someone's gonna say it. If not, I'm solid alone.
So it's such a great nerve that up to this minute, I cannot fully submit. I'm at a point where I must lead, even if it is at this point. So I am married, but I am leading. So I lead my household, I lead my kids, I lead me, I lead my business. I must lead. Here's the thing though, I do know how to submit, but I have not yet found that authority, separate and apart from my pastor, separate and apart from the government of this country, separate and apart from, we ought to submit to that. There's no choice right there. But separate and apart from being truly submissive to the authorities that we must be submissive to, I have a problem relegating authority to say, okay, you go ahead and plan it, because my thing is, if 3/4 way through the process it's not planned properly, then we hit another nerve. Because what happened? Don't you know that this needs to be in line? And so I struggle there, and it's a serious struggle, and I work literally daily to make sure that I don't go off the deep end because it wasn't executed as planned. In the church, I am, in my opinion, a praise person. So between liturgical dance and the choir and anything to do with praise, anything to do with worship, I am more drawn to. Please don't ask me to stand at the front and greet people, because that's just not my thing. But yeah, but I believe as a Christian, once we, as Lady Maria said, understand the word and understand how we are guided by the word, then all else will fall into place. Yes, we will struggle. There's no doubt we will. But what does the word say about struggling? How do we then ascribe our selves to the directions given by the word?
So now that we've discussed what it means to be a Christian woman, let's talk about maybe some of the struggles and joys of being Christian mothers. You might want to start.
Christian mothers. So that's another struggle for me, right? I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, that's another struggle for me, simply because I don't just mother my biological children. I have a tendency to mother outside of, Nikki's kids will come, Adrian kids will come, Lady Maria kids will come, people's kids that I don't know will come, and I'm mothering, I'm taking care, much to my detriment at times, but in my estimation, I have to give them a home, I have to care for them. And I believe as Christian women, as women ascribing to the authority given to us by the word, we need to create that village, because we know for a fact that kids are not raised by one parent or two parents. We know for a fact that it takes a village. So we definitely need to get into the whole aspect of taking care of each other's kids. You know, I'm not saying go and pop them for saying something, but if something is said that does not need to be said or should not be said, you know, Lady Maria, I heard Makai say this earlier today, can you help me? And we balance the entire thing out. That's my thought. Motherhood in the church needs to be a joint effort.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just, I think, difficult for me because I'm in the church personally, but my daughter's father, he is not in the church. And so we have different values. And trying to balance that, instilling in Leah certain values growing up as a Christian and this and that, it's hard to balance because he doesn't have those same values. So if we're all together, I'll say one thing, like when we pray, before we eat, we all pray. And he doesn't usually do that, but she's like, come on, Dad, hold my hand, we need to pray. It's difficult, and that's something I struggle with because I don't want to step on his toes as a father, because that is your father. But at the same time, I know how I want to raise my daughter within the church, and I want her to have the same values. And I know I've struggled with that personally, and I don't want to see her go through the same things that I went through. And it's important to build relationships with different mothers within the church so that I have someone to look up to, because I'm the youngest one out of all of us. I'm the youngest one, and so it has to do with relationships, I think, and it's important to build those relationships in order to grow as a Christian and continue to help my daughter grow to become a Christian and accept the Lord.
For me, Christian motherhood is kind of a sisterhood, it's a way, because it does take a village, like you said, Mel. And I think with the way society is working now, we're losing that. And it's really detrimental to just moms, like just looking individually at moms, you think you have to be a pillar by yourself. But no pillar in a building is ever by itself. It's always supported by other things around it to keep the building strong, which is the family. And I think, I'll relay it back to the church, but I grew up, obviously I grew up in the church, but I grew up seeing families when I was younger I thought were thriving. And I saw moms not having to mom their own kids. And even in like our family, I don't have to discipline my children by myself. My mother-in-law can do it. My sister-in-law can do it. My mother can do it. And I and my husband have no problem with it because we know it's important. Our kids need to see respect from everybody. And I think the beauty of good, strong Christian mothering is good, strong Christian sisters. Because, Auntie Mel can help me. Auntie Maria can help me. Miss Maria can help me, whatever. And you're not in it by yourself, and I think that's the beauty of it, because the church is supposed to be your family. You're not supposed to feel isolated. You're supposed to feel loved, welcome, and that's anybody. And it's hard being a mom. It's tiring because you have to always have your eye open, and even when you want to take a nap, your eye's still open. Your sleep is shallow. But when you're here, like one time, my son AJ, he ran through to the wards talking, two older people talking, and Sister Cheryl took him aside. She said, AJ, I love you, but you can't do that. You can't run through. You got to say, excuse me. You got to walk around. And I was like, thank you. Because that comes from the tactfulness, the beauty of the way and the grace of the way she spoke to him as a child was just like, I can't do that yet. I'm not there. And to piggyback on the question about Christian womanhood and what have you, to me, it was always a sense of grace. You behave in a certain manner, not like, I'm better than you, I'm entitled, but more of, you have something in you that's different. It's
called patience.
Yes, but it's the Holy Spirit covering you. And yes, for Sister Cheryl, she has some patience that I don't have with my son, because my son be like, just, why'd you run through them? You know better. But she took him aside and showed genuine grandmotherly type love that you can't really get anywhere else. And that was genuine. She wasn't trying to be mean to him, he did something wrong. He had an error. We're gonna fix it right now, and he'll be better for it. And I think with just people thinking they're independent or that they gotta do it on their own, for a good Christian sisterhood, motherhood, you don't have to. And I think that's what people forget. You don't have to do this by yourself. Even if you are a single mom, even if you're married, you're not by yourself. Someone's got your back, and thankfully it's also God who has your back. So.
I completely agree, Nikki. I think that one of the joys that I've seen in my children is Victoria will get in my car and she'll say, Mommy, can you play church music? And I love that, right? It's Kanye West, like, don't. But she is like in the back, like wailing her life out, like, God is. She's like having a whole like concert to the gospel album, right? Or it's Kirk Franklin, So and for me, that's all she wants to listen to, right? So she doesn't want to, she's not interested in listening to certain other types of music. Not that that's not available to her. Not that she doesn't, have her little kiki moments, right? But overall, for me, it's like, I can't believe my daughter is so vested in the Lord at such a young age. And I can see that as she grows, she'll want to express herself in praise and worship, because that is the personality she's exhibiting to me now. So for me, that's important, right? That's a joy for me when I can see that, or when my son is, greeting people at the door and taking like that. To me is a joyful for me, right? Now I have struggles, of course, because my son is my love son, right? He is my son from my husband's first marriage. But I don't treat him any different than I do Victoria. And my daughter is 5, my son is 14. So the age difference is huge, right? They do different things, but they are, one thing that I've noticed is that they connect the most now. And when we're in church, they are 2 peas in a pod, right? And so I have struggles with some things because I don't want her to ever get to the point where she feels like church is bogging her down. And I recently had an issue where she really wanted to stay. It was the 4th of July. She really wanted to stay with my mother. And we were having services. It was the first Sunday open. And she wailed and she cried because all the kids were there. And I felt bad, but at the same time I said, no, we're going to church tomorrow. Because it's important for you to understand that you can have as much fun as you want, but you have to be grounded in the Lord. And you're not going to get that if you're not in the seats. And that's important for you to know now. So every once in a while, she might miss a Sunday, right? And we're not having children's church right now, so I'm sure she's like, this is a bummer. But it's the routine. And that's what's important. It's the going to Bible study on Wednesday. It's setting the routine, coming to church on Sunday, 2 services, cleaning up in between, setting up, join this. It's the routine. It's seeing the same people with the same like mind, grow up with you, right? With all these children we have in the church, grow up together, and that routine becomes a part of their lives. So that even if something happens in her life, if the Lord takes me early or something and she strays away, she knows I have a place I can go, feel at home, be myself, be comfortable, and I can lay everything at the altar because I'm covered. Exactly. That's what's most important for me.
Even though we're in the midst of the routine, how do we know? Because the video games, the tablets, I'm sorry, but my son is so into it now that he can sit by himself, but he'll have a blatant conversation with the tablet. There are people around him, but he's talking to the tablet.
Yep, that's right.
How do we say to him, even in church, no children's church, how do we say at 5, get interested in what's going on here? How do we manage our kids with the video games, with the tablet, with the telephones, the cell phones? How do we balance? Because that is beginning to be a struggle, regardless of the kids being respectful to elders, being with elders. How do we, in the midst of having the routine, balance this technology that is creeping its way and bringing with it things that we don't want?
I think the technology has to become a part of their routine. They have to know when it's appropriate to use it, what's appropriate to watch and stuff like that, because especially in church at a time like this when we're not having children's church, I know Leah, she gets antsy and it's just like, you just watch my phone. But she has to also understand we're in the house of the Lord, you know. Even if I give her a coloring sheet, she knows she has to be quiet. She can't just be running around talking super loud. It's just a part of her routine. And I think the more that we have our children in the physical building, is they'll get to the point where they're understanding that, because she knows when the music's playing, she stands up, she's singing. But when Pastor JJ starts speaking, she's like, I'm ready to go. Why can't we go downstairs, Mom? Relax.
Yeah, and I struggle.
Because you're not going downstairs, so relax.
I struggle with that with Victoria a lot. It's easy. It's so easy to give her her tablet and her headphones and be like, girl, just sit there and watch your YouTube video about the LOL dolls. So I can listen to the service, so I can pay attention, right? It's so easy to do that. And one of the things that I learned even when we were back at God's Army was that at that age, it's just not, they're not even really understanding the material either. Even if we're trying, and that's why I don't want to force certain things on her yet, because she doesn't quite understand the material anyway. So children's church is really important for them, and I know we're not doing it. Anyway, that's really important, because even sitting and coloring, she can do that. Yeah. But that's like for like 15 minutes, right? And then you got to find something else for me to do. The great thing about the way this church has been put together, and the women's ministry on this side, in this church specifically, is that I was on children's ministry by myself at one point, and it was a lot, right? But now there's so many of us that are willing to be willing workers and helping hands in all of this, that it's okay to say, hey, if you take one service, I'll take the other service. But that's how they're going to learn. They're going to learn about the Lord from us, because they see us all as mother figures. And so their first inclination is, well, what did Miss Nikki say? Or what did Miss Mel say? Well, remember when she talked about X, Y, and Z? And that's how they learn, through constant interaction and through repetition. They're not going to get what Pastor JJ says in service. And it's difficult to try to pipe them down in the mix, especially now with 2 services. But I agree. I think that there has to be certain times where they turn it on and turn it off.
Right.
And I think there's also a certain age. And when you hit the double digits, you can start sitting in the church.
Yes.
Right. And when you're 10 and 11, you can understand concepts, come upstairs, get off your phone. So that's just my way. But
no, I'm kind of that parent. My husband and I are kind of those parents. We don't have tablets at home. My kids only have a laptop because it was for school. And I have like little games on my phone for Anthony, the 3-year-old, to play while the kids were doing school, but really that's been cut off. Because I've seen, and I'm not saying this to say, oh, I'm better than y'all, or better than any parent, because I'm not.
I'm not getting rid of no tablets.
I'm not. Nor would I necessarily encourage you to do that. But even then, like Alyssa, my oldest, she has access via my parents. And it can be a little scary because they say such and such, oh, we watched this, it was really funny, my mom agrees, and my husband and I say, nah, that's not gonna work. So for my parenting style, our parenting style, it's more of, you're going to have to learn. You're gonna have to mature because you're not leaving this church.
Right.
Your mommy and daddy are gonna bring you, you better learn how to sit.
Right.
Even at the dinner table in restaurants, you're gonna sit and you're gonna be a part. Because we don't use phones at the dinner table. We don't use phones at the when we could go to restaurants. We didn't do that either. Because also from the educational standpoint where I come from, I've seen the social impact on children. They don't see. I mean, that's also our fault too. We're all on our phones. They don't see when we're reacting, when we're genuinely reacting to them, because our phones are looking. I mean, our faces are looking at our phone. So a lot of, especially when they're younger, social cues are lost. And I will say that I've lost a few social cues with my children because of that phone. And I'm trying to work on myself to do that. But in my parenting style, it's more of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be in this church. For now, I as the children's church person, I do want to try to start something with them. I'm not sure how that looks because of just coronavirus and all that good stuff. But they do need some stimulation of some sort.
That's why I said it has to be. It has to be a balance.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, even at the house, like, look, I just got home from work. I'm tired. Right. Go get that tablet. 15 minutes. But then, like, I know personally, I set timers and stuff, and then you can always like put the blocks on and stuff like that.
Oh.
And it's
I have to give y'all my kind stuff.
and then, it's become a part of her routine.
Okay.
And working from home too is also, you also have to figure out how to do it in the middle. So I'll make Victoria do ABC Mouse for a certain amount of time because I know that there are certain games, or she plays this new thing called Kidoscope or something like that.
Okay.
There's certain things that I've subscribed to monthly that I know are educational but fun for her.
Right.
And I'll say, you do 30 minutes on there, because it's still fun, it's still educational, then you can watch, the YouTube or unboxing video or whatever. You can watch one video. So we try to balance out from that perspective too. But I also think Vicki said something really crucial. It is important to have family time. It is important to everyone to put their phones down when you have dinner and when you're sitting down for a meal, whether you're out or you're in the house. My tables are no tablet zones, no phone zones, no Nintendo zones for my son. Because it is vital to have that interaction. It's important for my daughter to feel like I can move from the baby table to the big table and sit at the big table with the grown-ups and have conversations. I mean, we're not having conversations about much of anything, but it's just, that's important for her. And so her sitting at the table with us and engaging with us in conversation about her day, it starts to set that tone. Again, that's what we want, right? Exactly. It's so that as our kids get older and they mature, they see the value in, it's important for me to have family dinners all together. It's important for me to go to church on Sunday. It's important for me to know how much electronic time to have versus how much, fun time to have. It's important for us to take our kids outside and try to do as much as we can with them outdoors. It's 1,000 degrees outside, but those things become a part of their genetic makeup. Right. So I completely agree with there has to be a cutoff time, but me and the tech together.
So we have a new question, right, guys? And I know for a fact this wasn't written by one of us. It says, switching gears here.
Okay.
Many of your close friends and family may or may not be on the same walk as you. Turning up to the point where they continually turn too far, if you know what I mean. How do you balance this? being in their lives, fighting temptations, not being too judgmental, because they turned up.
I'm gonna let somebody else answer this first. I'm just wait.
Well, a lot of my friends are, you know, I guess you could say worldly. You know, they we like to go turn up. You know, and it's
turns up or they turns
but
up?
at the same time, they know who I am, and especially like my close friends. They know, oh, we can't go out on Saturdays because Adrian has to go to church the next day. It's like, that's right, I do. And so it once again, because for me, it's always a balance. There's nothing wrong with going out and having a good time with your friends. My friends, my close friends, I've known them. My one best friend, I've known her since elementary school. And just because she's out there doing whatever she's doing, I don't love her any less. And I think that's important, is the love. Mm-hmm. They love me enough to know my limits. And I love them enough to accept them and their flaws and going out and having a good time. But at the same time, I like to go out and have a good time too. You know, just go to my friend's house, just watch movies, hang out and stuff, just go out to DC or something like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as I remember who I am and my testimony. They're always watching me. That's something that I have to remember. They're always watching me. And if I slip up, I'm not going to be able to bring them into my world, into the church, because there's like, well, Adrian, you were out here doing X, Y, and Z. Why should I go to the church with you? Because you're doing the same thing that I'm doing. So I have to remember my testimony at all times, even in the workplace. I think that's super important. Yeah, it's just all about balance for me.
I don't drink. I don't do all the extra stuff. It's just a personal choice. I don't think it works for me. And after seeing my friends and other people I know go through it and get skunked out, blackout drunk, is really not for me. And also going through having my first child, I was given medication that kind of just took me out of it. And I was like, if this was what drunk feels like or being high feels like, I don't want it. So, and I was 21, so I was like, no, I don't want it. So seeing my friends, I don't judge them, that's not my place. But they know who I am. They're like, oh, I went to one of my best friends for her birthday dinner. They're like, oh, my nickname's Vero to them. Vero doesn't drink. They're like, what? And these are her like church friends or work friends. What? I'm like, what'd she say? They're like, oh, you don't drink. I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, okay, that's good. And that was it. And I didn't have to explain myself. It was just, they know me.
Right.
So not that I would, but if I ever were to go, like what Adrian said, go a certain way, go astray, it would haunt me and not be worth that couple seconds of pleasure and fun or whatever. And I do, like my husband and I, we go out all the time. When we could. But it's just enjoying food, enjoying experiences. And if you do something that causes you to forget that or to escape from it, are you really enjoying it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And are you really living a life that is fulfilling and full for yourself? Not even for a higher being, not even for God, but for yourself. If you can't remember half of it and you say you had a good time, did you?
Right.
Did you really have a good time?
You want to go next?
I'm working myself into action now, right?
I can go.
Okay.
So I have a completely different experience. Like I said, when I graduated from high school, I went to college. I went to Spelman College. I was in Atlanta, Georgia. It was nothing but a party all the time. Now I did my grade, I did my work, and I graduated. Thank the Lord for that. But so I have been blackout drunk before. I have dibbled and dabbled in other areas of my life and just different things. And so it's hard for me because I always get a little hesitant because all of my closest friends are from college.
Gotcha.
And that's not to say I don't have close friends in the church, because I do, because I actually consider you all very close friends of mine. But I consider you more like family.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between when I go
Mm-hmm.
and I hang out with Mel and I hang out with Adrian and Nikki and Andrew and Eric. It's a totally different environment than when I'm with my girlfriends, right? And it's not to say that I don't love them any less, but they know a different Maria.
Yeah.
And pre-saved Maria is completely different than first lady Maria. And I can say that, I can be transparent enough to say that to you all, because that was a struggle for them, and it was a struggle for me. And along the way, I've lost friends because of it. Yeah. Because I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always prudent. I didn't always read my word. I always didn't have a heart. I didn't always have a heart for God. So they don't know that person, and it was harder for them to learn that person, and it happened so like stark. It was like a slap. And for them, they was like, there's no transition period here. Yeah. You started going to church, you got married 7 months later, and then we didn't even hear from you for like the first 3 years of your marriage. And it was because I felt like I had transitioned into a place where I didn't know how to balance. I didn't know how to balance pre-saved Maria with post-saved Maria. Right? So my friends were all kind of in this realm of, well, we don't know you anymore. Well, we think you're really this way, and so they thought for a long time it was a facade. They thought I was acting a certain way because I married Pastor JJ. My husband was a pastor before. He was my pastor before he was my husband. So people thought that this period in my life was something that I was putting on a front for. And that was difficult for me because these were people that I love. These are people who I've always supported and just been there for. And loyalty is really big with me. So it was really hard, and it broke my heart to have to set boundaries with a lot of people. I'm in a place now where I can maneuver a little bit because I don't want to be holier than thou in the situation, right? I don't want to, and I was doing that for a while. When I first got married, it was like, my husband this, church is this, and people were kind of like, girl,
we're tired of you.
Yes, and so because they don't know this Maria, it was, okay, let me take a step back, let me refocus and rebrand so that we can merge this Maria that you're comfortable with, right? And the Maria that the Lord is leading me to be. Because ultimately, I want you guys to be here from staying in that box. Because staying in that box is going to lose this Maria. And I don't want to lose you guys.
Right.
I will, but I don't want to. So how do I edge you over to take that journey with me when you're ready to, right? Because I can't force anyone to do anything. And I've seen it happen. I've seen my friends come to different events, right, at the church. You know, JJ's installation service, right? So there's little moments where I'll say, hey, I'm speaking here, or JJ's doing this. You know, are you guys available? Do you want to come? I'll invite them out. I'll send them the links for the Bible study and the real talk, and sometimes they'll join in. And so for me, again, it's been different because they don't know this person. I'm almost like a whole new person to them. And so it's merging those two lives, but also getting them to understand this is not a phase. This is not a trend. This is who I am in my life. This is where the Lord is leading me. He's just going to continue to lead me on this path, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that together. But I'll meet you where you are. Right. I'm not opposed to that at all. But you also understand I'm not doing certain things with you. Like, I'm not going out to the club with you. Right. It's just not happening, right? I got kids, I'm married, I'm not doing that. Brunch on Sunday is probably also not going to happen. If it does, it's after church, and that's if I feel like it, and usually it doesn't happen. So let's go bowling on a Friday night. Let's do it. You know, so it's about offering, not just shutting everyone down, but offering suggestions that work for us as well in my Christian lifestyle with their more worldly lifestyle, and balancing the two, right? So I think that's kind of my part in it. But
so I didn't know how to balance. God had to balance my situation for me. So I was in the church, but the party would end at 4 o'clock on the Sunday morning, and then I would have to be at church at 6:30 a.m. to hit the choir. But I was leaving the party in my party clothes, but my church clothes was in the car. And so I truly didn't know how to balance. And I was drinking. I've never been blind, stone drunk, never. So I was drinking, and then I was going to lead the song at the first service. And then I was dating my daughter's father, but then in the middle of it, I had another person that I was dating. So I truly didn't know how to balance. I didn't have the first idea of how to balance. God had to balance it, and God came in swift.
Yes, wonderful.
Swift. And he balanced it. He balanced it so much so that he pulled me right out of the situation. And I went to prison. Right, so I was in prison for 4 months handling. That's where I had to kind of dumb myself all the way down, and that is where I learned balance. If I didn't sit there for that 4 months, if I didn't get that, nobody knows where I am for those 4 months, then it would have been a totally different situation. I would have been balancing the streets and balancing church, possibly still doing the getting done party at 4 o'clock and singing at 6 o'clock. But yeah, he came in real swift, and at the end of the 4 months I was vindicated, yes, but I was free of the anchorage, the weight. Because I knew within myself before the 4 months that I had to let them go. But was I able to let them go? It was so difficult for me to actually let them go, because I was, oh, the party is good, the liquor is good, but how can you be singing, oh, the love of God at 6:30, being possibly high on the if I was to do a breathalyzer, the police would be like, you know? So yeah, he had to, how do I keep that balance now? I do speak to some, because some of them have reached out, have found me on wretched Facebook. They're like, oh, where have you been? Hiding. Praising God. But anyhow, they've reached out, and I haven't turned anybody away. But they see a different lifestyle now that they've reached out. When they come on stream, they'll see, oh, what's going on your page? No shorts, no drinking hand. I'm telling you, literally, they're like, what happened to you, God? You know? But with that, I've been able to just know now that even if they come, we're forwarding a joke, and even if they forward a joke and it's not to my taste, I'll immediately press delete, and they'll see delete for everyone, and so they'll see that it's deleted on both sides, and they're like, you deleted my joke. I'm like, yeah, it's not something I want to see, you know. And I've become real open, real open with it. Melissa, can we go? No, that's not for me. Melissa, can we? I say, are you taking your kids? Because I have kids, so are we merging this? You know, I'm just real simple no, rather than saying, oh, let me think about it and give them the go around. Not doing it.
And I've seen my friends really, some of them have really made the effort to adjust to my lifestyle, which to me is a real signal of a real relationship and a real friend. Because they'll say, well, let's go to the park and we'll bring all the kids and we'll all go together. Or if they say, you know, do you guys want to maybe go to a vineyard or something, like, you know, let's go somewhere where we have space, social distancing, you know, or some place where the husbands can come too, and we can make it a date night. So I have seen some of them really kind of understand me better, and then they say, well, we're not going to invite Maria to this because we don't want to insult you.
Right. Don't want to be fair to you.
Right, and so we'll make adjustments, or when are you available, Maria, so that we can all work our schedules around you and the kids and other people with kids. And so, you know, I think there's a maturity level that comes with it too. When you've known people from 18, I'm different at 18 than I am at 33, right? So there's a maturity level that grows with it, and that's important. But I think it's important that we're able to all just share it in this platform. Because I think there are so many people or young women that struggle with or that stay away from the church because they don't know how to be a Christian, right? And they have all these like stipulations and these thoughts in their heads about what they can and can't do, and these restrictions, and it's actually the most freeing experience you'll have to be able to say no to people sometimes because you know that that's not what the Lord wants for you, and you don't have to explain it because you know that only person that you need to verify and run that through is the Lord.
Exactly.
Is the Holy Spirit filter. So it's a freeing experience to be able to let that weight go for me, and then also to see people mature and grow with me and understand this life and the life that I'm trying to lead. So I'm glad that everybody's kind of open to really telling how difficult, you know, this can be.
It was, I think it was especially hard for me because I've been in the church since I was 4 years old. So growing up, you know, Awana, Vacation Bible School, but then you're in high school and you're like, oh, you guys don't go to church? so what do you do? And they say, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And so you sort of want to experience these things, but at the same time you're like, but I'm supposed to be in church, you know, I got to go to Wednesday Bible study and stuff like that. So I think that's what I struggle with the most. I want to go out there with my friends. I want to go do things with my friends, bad things with my friends, you know? And so it's like, did I do some things that I probably shouldn't have done? Yes. Am I glad that I experienced those things? Yes, honestly, because now I sort of know what I'm missing out on, but I'm really not missing out on anything. But I needed that for myself to help with my growth and my own personal testimony. Because if I hadn't experienced those things, I feel like I'd be sort of blind to the world, and I wouldn't really be able to relate to some of those people. And I think that's important. You have to be able to relate to those you're trying to reach out to. I'm not saying that, you know, as a Christian, you need to go out there, go to the clubs and drink to see what they're doing. I'm not saying that. But for me, that was important to know sort of the right from wrong. Because growing up in the church, they say you don't drink, you do not get drunk with wine, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not do all these things. But if someone just tells you that, you just have to take it for face value. And if you've never truly experienced that, it's a little different for me.
Yeah, and I so the question that I have for you and Nikki, because you did really grow up in the church. When you fall, is the judgment from people? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's worse? Do you think it's because like if I slip up and I'm around friends and let's say something happens, or let's say if I have a drink around my friends, it's not to the same extent as if
One of us
Nikki would have had a drink around somebody and they're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So
What is that?
I'm wondering, is it, but see, then I don't feel comfortable doing certain things around people in the church. So there's always a double standard. I'm just wondering, is it coming from growing up in the church and having friends that maybe didn't? How does their opinion, no, not their opinion, but how do their reaction to certain things you may do or things you have done in the past or mistakes you have made, do you feel like it's more of a, well, you grew up in a church, and you know what I mean? Like, is it more judgmental?
I think for me it's more of a mental thing, and I personally worry more about judgment from people in the church because I've held leadership roles and stuff like that. Like specifically, when I had my daughter, I'm not married, you know. Ooh, big no-no. And so I think when I first had her, I was just, my friends, they didn't care, honestly, because those are my friends. They know the kind of person I am. Yeah, I made a mistake. But I was so concerned about how I was going to be viewed in the church. Wow. Just like, oh my gosh, like she's the director of Vacation Bible School. She is the cubbies. She does solos every other week. And I think, I felt really bad. I felt so bad. And it hurt to know, I don't want to disappoint anybody. And that is just, whether it be in the church or with my friend, I never want to hurt anybody. And that's why I felt like I hurt them.
The church or your family?
Everybody.
How did you deal with that?
I sort of just had like a shutdown. And I don't talk about it.
It took a lot of time too.
Sorry, Mom. I don't talk about it. I'm just I try to deal with things by myself. And so I just be in my room, baby would be asleep, I'd just be laying there crying.
Do you think you were depressed? I'm sorry if I'm pressing
No, you're fine. I think so. And I sort of didn't really know what to do. Because not only, you know, church life, but real life happened at the same time. I, at that time, was in a job that I didn't have. It was considered a part-time job. Didn't have a job after I had it. My car had just broken down.
Ooh.
So whatever paycheck I had, like that was it. And so I was just like, what do I do? Who do I turn? I've disappointed I've disappointed God. I've gone against what he said. So how can I even go to him and I ask for help and forgiveness because I'm ashamed of who I am and what I've done to you. I've gone against everything that you've, been doing, and like, it was just so hard. But then I had the support of my family. She gave me all of, Alyssa's hand-me-downs and stuff like that. And I just had to pray. I was like on my knees, on my face, praying, because what else can I do? And I don't want to ask for help. I never want to be a burden to somebody else. That's how I feel, as I will be a burden to somebody else. So I honestly, the Lord brought me through. That is the only thing I can say.
Stepped in swiftly.
Yes. And I'm not saying that I was like running the streets and stuff like that, but I definitely wasn't doing what I was supposed to do.
Right.
And so just that, March 6th, my whole life changed. March 6th, 2016, everything had to turn around. And I had to just, I had to become a mom. And I had to refocus my Christian walk. Did I lose people along the way? Yeah. Were my feelings hurt? Yes. But I knew the Lord had a greater purpose for me.
Do you think you should have lost them along the way? Do you think you should have cut them before this whole...
Yeah, because they weren't helping me anyway. I mean, we were out doing whatever.
And I only ask that because in my situation, if I had listened to God...
Exactly. I was like, going out on Saturday, coming in the house at 2 in the morning, Sunday school 9:45, And it's important. Sometimes you need something like that to just knock you completely off your feet, so you realize. And it took me a long time to get to that point because, the people I wanted to reach out to, my friends, they weren't available to me anymore.
Right.
And so this is one song that came out in 2000. Tasha Cobb's song, Gracefully Broken.
Oh, yeah.
And she just talks about, here I am, once again, just broken. And God is always there to take you back. And that is what I had. I was like, He's here for me. And so, despite the judgment, despite losing people along the way, like, I'm okay. God's got me.
Yes.
And I am 10 times better than I was 4 years ago.
So my mistakes, my shortcomings were not as public as Adrian's. Mine were more personal, just growing up in the church and growing up with Filipino parents and family. Everything is very sheltered, everything's very restricted, and you know what you're not supposed to do, but you don't know how to navigate when you have feelings of what you're not supposed to do. Because don't do it. Don't do that. That's bad. But even with kids, we don't tell them why sometimes. And they don't know. I didn't know. So mine was more of just like mental, just impure thoughts. I was wondering stuff. Like early teenage time, I was just learning about my body, learning about stuff. And I knew I couldn't go to my parents because they said, no, you're not supposed to do this. And I knew, okay, I won't. But I don't know what this is. And so truthfully, my mistakes itself wouldn't have been found out unless I didn't do what I did, which was writing a note, just laying it all out, just being all up in my teenage feelings and whatever, and just being the drama queen. But I mean, they were, thinking about it now, they're very genuine. I'm growing up. I want to know about my body. I want to know why I think the way I do, what other people think, because we didn't know.
Right.
And all we had was TV. And it wasn't even like cable. We had the
basic,
the bunny ear TV. So I got not the great stuff. So
and you don't want to feel bad.
Yeah,
curious.
But I did because I'm like, no, this is bad. Mommy said no, this is bad. And I think my story is very similar to people who stayed in the church. They didn't want to break away, but it's a very sheltered thing. And the only reason my mom learned about certain things was because I literally just wrote it down and she found the paper. And so we had this big talk. And truthfully, I don't remember what came of it. It's just more of, I did a bad thing. I didn't do the right thing. But So I went the Christian path. I followed the rules, and I'm happy. I've been blessed because of it. My marriage has been blessed. My family's been blessed because of it, and I don't regret it a day.
So how do you relate that to Alyssa as she grows up?
Being open.
Yeah.
So we ironically, Andrew and my husband and I have talked about this, like, I don't want to have the same mistakes. I don't ever want any of my 3 children to feel you should be ashamed of part of your body. You should have an explanation to your body.
Right.
You should have a guidance of where your body should be doing, what it should be reserved for, why we're reserving it, why it's important to be pure in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my identity on my virginity, because I did save it till marriage, was stay pure. That's it. I didn't know what
And
that.
you didn't know why?
I didn't know. I knew why. Oh, God said so. You're supposed to be married. I knew why, but
There's a deeper understanding.
I didn't know that there were levels to thinking like that. I didn't know that they didn't mean just the one thing. They meant all the things. I didn't understand until I got married and having deep conversations with my husband why it's important to stay pure. It's not your body. It's God's body. You just happen to be here to hold it. And I didn't realize how beautiful it is to share one thing that is so personal with one person. And also, my husband and I are just awkward people. I can't imagine just sharing that with whoever you feel like and saying, oh, okay, bye. And I don't pass judgment on anyone who does it, because you gotta learn your own way if you are even gonna learn the lesson. But for me, I'm like, I'm socially awkward, and I'm okay with that. I've learned to be okay with it. I just, on my own level, I can't imagine doing something that is so blatant and so personal and just saying, okay, might see you tomorrow. I don't know. What's your name again? And again, I'm not judging anybody for doing it.
I know, right?
Like next time, next. But yeah, it's just, for me, for my mistakes and my shortcomings was my own personal guilt. I knew what I wasn't supposed to do. I knew that, but because of the way I was raised, and I'm not harping on my parents, they knew their best. They did their best with what we had. And it was a very stressful area that we lived in, and I understand it. As a parent, I get it. And I'm appreciative of what they've done and the way they've done it. But having a little bit more now for Alyssa, AJ, and Anthony, it's be open. Don't be afraid to say, Mommy, I feel this way.
Right. I think that's like super important about being open, because I felt like I had to keep secrets. And that weighs on you, whether physically, mentally. It's a challenge trying to, like, okay, I can go out and do this, but I can't tell my mom. I can't tell my mom. But then I gotta be here. It's just so much. I'm like struggling so much to live this double life for no reason. What is the point? Exactly. Just be open and be honest. And that's what I try to do. Her kids are ridiculous. They talk about everything.
We are very open, but in a somewhat respectful.
And I try to do the same thing with my daughter. She's only 4, so obviously there's like a certain point where you shouldn't talk about, but just be open. Be honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
That is what's most important.
In addition to that, to what all you guys are saying, was just being openness, or having openness, especially with my children. I don't want them to ever feel like they're dirty, that they're not worthy of the body they have. Because to me, they're not perfect, but they were created, like they were stitched together by God in my belly. And for them to think any less of that creation, of that amazingness, especially my daughter, who, as far as we can see, people think she's gorgeous, and we're working on that. So, and we don't want her to be too haughty, but God made her a certain way. She's a beautiful girl, and she will be a beautiful woman, inside and out. Hopefully, our job is the inside part. But for her, I don't want her to ever think, I can't feel a certain way.
Right.
Without having the guidance as to what we can do to make it better, why we accept certain behaviors, why we don't accept certain behaviors. For the boys especially, because they are learning their body parts, they're great in their own way. But there's a time and place, and we gotta learn to reel that back in. And there's nothing wrong with that, because they're boys, but it's like, with the openness to shut that down also brings that factor of shutting down God's creation on them. Their beauty and the splendor of God's work in them, not just what they look like, but just like how much God put effort into those 3 little beings, all of our little beings. And how dare we shut that down with saying, oh, you're not supposed to think like that, without any reason why.
Right. So I think it's removing this area of shame, almost, right? And even not having really grown up necessarily in the church, there is always this level of shame that is put on, or that is kind of intrinsically woven into Christianity in some ways. And so, you know, when you've got the world telling you to do one thing, and Christianity's bad, they're going to shame you if you want to have sex, or they're going to shame you if you want to learn about your body, or you have these feelings, right? And you're like, well, I don't want to live in shame, and I don't want to have to be a dual person, right? I don't want to have to put on a mask when I come in here and then be somebody different in the streets, because that's what happens, right? And then we spiral out, or we have these depressive states, and we don't know how to handle it because we've been taught one thing our whole lives with Christianity and the way we should conduct ourselves. And so it's like any little small deviation from that can sometimes blow up into something much, much bigger. And then it leads to people not wanting to come to church. Like, I grew up in the church, but I'm grown now and I don't want to go back. Well, because you want to live a certain life, and you think that you'll be judged for that life if you're in around the body, which should not be the case. We should be the least judgmental people here, right? And so everyone has their own different story on this panel. We all have our own backgrounds, how we came to be here. The great thing is that none of them are judging each other because of those backgrounds, right? And so I think you're right. It's important to be open with your children and have those conversations. JJ has already told me, like, I'm going to have the conversation with Victoria about her body, about not feeling she's going to feel as a woman, right? But why it's important for her to remain chaste, for her to be a virtuous, what that looks like, why the Bible says it's important for her to do that, what the real meaning and definition of it is behind that. Now, I'm going to have other conversations with her about different things too, but it's important for that man in her life who is the head of my household, who's her father, who's someone who she looks up to in just amazement, to say to her, this is, because it establishes her worth in a way, right? It says, this is what you're worth to God. Know that at a young age, so that when you get 18 and 17 and 16, you don't have some other outside man determining your worth for you. And I think I went through that, where I was creating my own worth based off of other people.
External
and it's so fleeting too.
Yeah, it is.
It's emotional. It's not concrete.
Absolutely. And so not having, and my dad's an amazing dad, but not having those conversations about, hey, this is why the Lord values you specifically. Not all women, because it might not be the case. But the gate to heaven is narrow, right? The way is narrow. So this is why the Lord values you, because intrinsically this is who He made you to be, perfectly the way you are, and that value should carry you. And I assume that may be the case with you all, that there is this value that's set up very early, and then it helps you navigate through certain things, but you still have to be able to have those conversations to say, even if you feel that way, even if these are feelings that you're having because you're becoming an adult, right? It's okay. You're not going to be shamed for it, right? Yeah. And this is why you're not going to be shamed for it. This is why this is natural. But you know your worth is so much better, so much bigger, essentially, bigger picture, right? Than what other people do.
And in addition to that, it's like when you look for someone who you want to spend your life with, their husband or their wife, when you establish you are valuable because God has put value on you, and it's not going to change. All you're going to look for is someone to add to it. No one can take that away. No one's going to chip that out. And if they start to, your child will be equipped enough, hopefully, to be able to say, nah, you're not for me, and that's okay. You're not going to do anything more to me because you're not worth it. You're not helping me. And how great would our family dynamics be with our children having that in the long term? Not that like, oh, you have to get married. But no, if you want to get married, you find someone who is worthy of your value.
Absolutely.
You're only going to be able to become blessed and be bigger and bigger. And you'll have issues, as you should. But your issues will be so much more towards growing and becoming a one entity and solidifying that and futuring the growth of the family. And how beautiful would that be if we get this right now? We do it right now, we can have a good future for our babies and our grandbabies. So.
Right. Focus on the Lord. And all that other stuff He will add to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that has to be the focus, and that work starts when they're younger. I agree.
We know you're enjoying hearing us. We are actually having a real good time just laying it all out.
Yeah.
Questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 not written by the women.
We're enjoying talking. By the way.
Yeah.
Real talking.
Real talk, exactly. So we know you're enjoying it too. Join us for part 2 soon. This is Real Talk.
First Ladies Edition.
There we go.
Yes.